What's up? This is Release Rotation. I'm your host, John W. Snyder. It is 2026. I have not done one of these in almost 2 months. I have a problem where I have all these ideas and then I start the idea and I don't finish or complete the idea. Obviously, if you look at like the symptoms, I don't know if it's symptoms, but just the things I do, a lot of people would probably say I have ADD or ADHD, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I don't care because whatever. But I will say, whatever it is, it's not a good excuse for not doing the things that I'm passionate about or care about or want to do, if that makes sense. I know this is a sports podcast, but I'm also going to use this as a time to just share for a minute because it has been a while. And like I said, I've been just thinking through things and trying to figure out, honestly, how to make money by doing this because I love podcasting. I love the idea of it. And my goal for 2026 is to just get better at it. But I have another channel called the Podcast Playbook where I'm putting together a 10-part series of starting a podcast. And so that's also on my radar. And I just want to create more content. I want to share my ideas, my thoughts and opinions about sports and about podcasting because I love both those things. I think they are very awesome. And I think that everybody should have a podcast. I know a lot of people won't agree with that. There's too many podcasts. The cream always rises to the top. So create a podcast, do whatever. But I think that if you have a small business, if you have a passion, you should have a podcast. And that's where I'm at with all this. And I've been podcasting on and off for, I don't know now, 10 years plus. Like if you go back and you look at Facebook, so on Facebook, you can go look at memories. And what it basically is what you've posted on this day. And it shows all the things you posted on a day. For instance, today is January. I don't even know what the date is. If you go to Facebook, go to your memories, it'll show January 15th, things that you posted on January 15th for the however long you've been on Facebook. And I look at it every day just to see what was happening in my life 15 years ago. And there's times where I look back and it's like 2012 and it's like podcasting stuff that I've talked about. And then even like there was one from like 2008 or 9. And it was literally, how do you start a video podcast? So I've had this idea. I've wanted to do this before I even realized you could do it or how you could do it. By no means am I saying I'm a pioneer in this, but I've thought of podcasting and video podcasting for a very, very long time now. And I start doing something. Look, I've already been all over the place, but just with the podcasting stuff and creating content, I start something and then I end it because part of it is I get frustrated because I'm not making any money from this, which that's a horrible thing because I feel like if I were to do this every day and to continue to create stuff and create content, that eventually something would happen. And so that's also my goal for this year, for 2026, is I'm just going to create so much content around podcasting and then just my passion of sports and just talking about sports. Because this is what I would do is if I was with my friends that I grew up with and I'm still friends with, if we were wherever. I live in California now. Most of them are in Oklahoma. One's in Texas. But every time we get together, we tend to talk sports for a very, very long time and about all things sports, even in our text threads and everything. And so that's just what I want this to be, is just my opinion and my idea of sports. And so 2026 is a new year, a new time to move forward, a new time and a new era to do things differently. And so I'm just going to create as much content as I can and get out as much content as I can on social media, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, those places. That's where I'm going to share this, because even now with the way the algorithm works and whatever, I could put out 20 pieces of content on Instagram today, and the people who follow me won't see all 20 pieces. And so why not put out as much as you can if you want to make something of your idea or make something of yourself? So that's where I'm at with this, but I end up procrastinating and not doing things. It's like, oh, well, I need to read this book to get better at this. Or, you know what? I'm going to write down all these ideas on this notepad. And so I always find a way to not do the thing I know I should be doing, which goes back. I just think back to even my childhood and just procrastinating with homework and studying and turning in papers and that kind of thing. But also, I hated school, like the learning side of it, which I get. You got to go to school, you got to learn, but I hated it. I'm not sure I ever really told my parents that, or we talked about it, but like if I had a paper due, let's say I have a paper due now in 2 weeks, I'm doing that paper the day before it's due, which is wild because I could sit down, and if I had a 4-page paper that was due or 5-page paper, I would do it the night before, crank it out, and somehow get a B on it. I don't know. That's just who I am and what I am about and what I do. And, it's not good to procrastinate. And that's why I go back to the whole like ADD or ADHD thing. Like, maybe that's what it is, because I would rather figure out to do something else besides what I'm supposed to be doing, which I don't know if that's ADD or whatever, but I just laugh when stuff comes up on Instagram about ADD, because this morning there was one, and it was a comedian, and the top part was like, if you enjoy opening cabinets, and then the bottom part was like, then marry a husband who has ADD. Because I laughed and I sent it to my wife, because I open cabinets in our kitchen and I never shut them, ever. And I don't know what that's about, but it's just part of my DNA, I guess. But, I look back and like, the whole school thing, don't get me wrong, I'm like the social part of school, loved it. I loved every part of school in that aspect. Going to sporting events, going just out with my friends, doing things with my friends. But sitting in a classroom was just horrible for me. And when I got to college, it kind of showed, because I never went to class. Unless it was a class I had to go to that, if you miss, you're going to get deducted points or whatever. I would miss as many as I could and then not miss any more, other than my journalism classes. I went to every journalism class. I loved all of my journalism classes. Even I had a class called media law, by far the hardest but coolest class I ever took. It was all about media law, libel and defamation and in the media and journalism. And it was so hard, and I wasn't going to be a lawyer, but I love that class. I learned so much, and I actually still have my notebook from that class. And so I learned a ton, but I just say all that, like, if it's something I'm really passionate about or want to do, then I do it. And that's why I like this podcast playbook and this podcast here. And it's hard over the holidays too, because the kids are home, and, it's not an excuse, because I can always find time to record, but I took a break. I had to get things in check. And so here I am, January 15th, 2026, starting anew. And this episode right now, I could talk for an hour right now. And I might just talk for an hour, because who cares? The longer you talk, the more things you talk about, the more content you get out of your podcast. And, I say all that. I talk about school and just how I couldn't stand it, other than the social side of it, and, friends and all that, sports. But man, I look back and I'm like, wow. And at the time, I didn't really feel that way. It was more of like, school was a chore to me, especially like high school, and my general ed in college was just a chore. It's like, I just got to get this done, have to do this. And man, I would wait. And my dad always would be like, don't you have a paper due? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. And my dad could never understand how I would have a paper due in 2 weeks and do it the night before it was due. And, I didn't get A's on them. I got B's, maybe a C plus, depending. If it was Mr. Huff's English class, probably got a C plus or a B minus in high school. But I think with procrastination, I think obviously as an employer or an employee or as a manager, you have to understand how people who procrastinate or have ADD operate. Because honestly, like, I'm going to find the best, quickest way to do something because I wait till the last minute. And there's people like that. And that doesn't work in every job and every career. I get that. I totally get that. But I think of this because I look back at my job at Apple when I was doing merchandising and like basically my role the last like 3 years I was at Apple. And I did it off and on even before this was actually a role in an Apple store. But I was the merchandising and like visuals, like to make sure everything worked in the store. But like, I would just figure out the quickest, best way to do something because I would either wait to the last minute or I just didn't want to do it. And good or bad, whatever. But I don't know. I just say all that because I get to my point now of being like, okay, here's what I'm passionate about. Because this is the other thing, just to be transparent, I don't make any money off of this. I would love to. Don't get me wrong. I would love to be able to turn podcasting and helping people podcast into a full-time job. And that's what 2026 is about, is trying to figure that out. But that's where I'm at. That's what's happening. If you like me, then get excited because you're going to see a lot of content from me on my Instagram and YouTube and everywhere else. And if you don't like me, sorry, then you can block me or mute me or whatever on those channels if I come up too much in your feeds. But let's get into some sports. Thanks for listening to that nonsense. Well, the other thing too about 2026, I know everyone's like, oh, I'm going to set these goals or I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do this year. And I think another funny thing with like it's like, what's your word for the year? It's like, I don't even know my word for the week. My word changes all the time. And it's like, okay, so if I were to have a word for the year, I don't know if it would be consistency or discipline, probably is what my word, that should be my word for my entire life though, not just 2026. But looking forward, that's what's going to be happening. A lot of sports talk, a lot of podcast talk. So if you want sports talk, release rotation, that's where that's going to be. If you want podcast stuff, that's going to be Podcast Playbook. And then my other just Instagram channel, John W. Snyder. And then I have a release rotation Instagram, which I'm not sure that I need both. I'm just wondering if I just put everything on one, which I think that's kind of where I'm at with Instagram. Anyways, just put everything on one and just go for it. Because it's so annoying to have to manage. Technically, I manage 3 Instagram accounts that are my own, which sounds so stupid. The first one I ever created, that one is a private one where I post pictures of our kids and stuff. And that's mainly my close friends, people I know personally that I've actually had a relationship with or still do that I like. That's on my private Instagram account where I share stuff with my family. My other ones, I don't do family stuff because no one wants to see that. And that's not what I want to put on those. So anyways, a lot of content coming out, a lot of figuring out 2026, a lot of figuring out how to make money through this, whether it's with, whatever it might be, digital products for podcasting, sponsorships for release rotation that I want to figure out. But anyways, I'm going to talk sports for a while because I haven't. And that's what I want to do because I'm going to create 30 pieces of clips from this to put out there. So what should we talk about first? You know what? Let's talk about Oklahoma State football. Eric Morris was the former head coach at North Texas, is now at Oklahoma State. He played at Texas Tech. He comes from a small town outside of Lubbock, Texas, called, I don't even know what it's called, Shallow Water? Something water? Shallow Water, Texas? Anyways, as you know, Mike Gundy got fired, which he was done. You could just tell he was just not even trying. Honestly, I don't think he cared. Looking back, which is a bummer. Like, dude, just quit. But I think he wanted to get fired just to get that money. I could be wrong. I don't know. But the fact that Oklahoma State got Eric Morris, and now the transfer portal, obviously we had so many players leave, whether they wanted to or, now in this day and age of NIL and stuff, some players are forced to leave, which is crazy now. But Oklahoma State football is in good hands with Eric Morris and his coaching staff. And man, they have been active on Twitter and Instagram more so than any other Oklahoma State coaching staff I've ever seen or witnessed, which that's not important, but it's fun for the fans. But Oklahoma State now has almost, I think, 50 commits from the transfer portal. We are ranked number 5 today, I think. We have been in the top 5 since the portal opened, basically. So stud quarterback, stud running back, receivers coming from North Texas, which everyone's like, oh, yeah, North Texas, wow, you get players from there. And it's like, man, look at Indiana. Nettie brought like 13, 14, however many players from James Madison. Was it James Madison? And look what he's done at Indiana. So obviously it can be done in this NIL age. Indiana's never been good at football. Ever. Really good. And so that gives me high hopes for a guy coming from North Texas. But the other side of it too is he is a quarterback like coach in a way. Like there's some guys that you may have heard of that he's coached in his time with Mike Leach at Texas Tech, a guy named Patrick Mahomes, just guys like that. So, and the quarterback Messamaker from North Texas that's transferring to Oklahoma State. He is a great quarterback and he'll translate and be fine in the Big 12. And so huge things happening for Oklahoma State football. It'll be nice to finally get a Big 12 win next year because it will happen. We haven't had a Big 12 win in 2 seasons, and I'm excited for the future. I'm excited as an Oklahoma State grad to see what happens with football in the next couple years. And I'm not expecting a huge turnaround in year 1. I don't think that will happen. I'm not expecting us to win 10 games next year, but I am expecting us to win more than 2 and to win more than 2 or 3 Big 12 games. So that's huge. Can't wait to see what happens in Stillwater, America. What else do we have? Let's talk about what, since we're talking about college sports, the transfer portal. There has to be something that has to be fixed with the transfer portal in college sports. Mainly football, because that's where all the money is, I think. So there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of transferring happening. But this is my fix for the transfer portal. You get 1 free transfer. And then if you transfer again, you got to sit out a year. Unless your coach leaves or quits or gets fired. That's a different case scenario. But if I start out at Oklahoma State and I transfer and I want to transfer to BYU, I get a freebie. But then I'm at BYU and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to transfer to USC because they're willing to pay me more. Great. That's fine. You can do that, but you're going to sit out a year. Something has to change because there's just no more loyalty. There's just no more in that at all. Like, it makes no sense the way it's done and the way it's operated. I get it. Players want to figure out how to make more money, especially players who might not play in the NFL, because I just saw there's some quarterback who he is going to his 7th school. How's that even possible? This guy's going to be a doctor by the time he graduates, but his school's been a downgrade. So he's not going to play in the NFL. So he's probably just trying to figure out how to make that NIL money right now. because he started at like LSU, went to Auburn, Texas State, Tulane. Now he's at like Georgia State or Alabama State or something. And I missed some schools in there because he's going to his 7th school. Good grief. It has to end somehow, some way. Something has to change. Like I said, that was my solution. One free transfer, and then if you transfer again, you got to sit out a year because it's never going to stop. You're never going to have loyalty. You're never going to have these players play for the same school, which is a bummer because, man, I want people to stay at Oklahoma State for at least 3 years. Like, give me 3 years. I can't name a player who stayed at Oklahoma State for 3 or more years in the last however long, or any school for that matter. I mean, 2 years for most, I would say, especially like quarterbacks, I guess. But man, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the transfer portal. And now there's like another window because of the national championship game being January 19th. So then there's another window just for those teams. So if players want to transfer or come in, it's a mess. It's a mess. But speaking of the national championship, we've got Miami versus Indiana in Miami. So the Miami Hurricanes have a home game. Not that the crowd will be heavy Miami, because if you watch the Peach Bowl with Indiana and Oregon, I mean, Oregon's pretty far away, but man, there were so many Indiana fans there. They travel very, very well. There were a ton of Indiana fans at the Rose Bowl against Alabama. I think there were more Indiana fans. It sounded louder for Indiana than it did Alabama at the Rose Bowl. So they travel very, very well. So I don't know how many, once they allot the tickets for both schools, then there's tickets for the general public and whoever. But it'll be interesting to see how many of those tickets Indiana fans scoop up and what that crowd looks like, even though it is in Miami, where the Hurricanes play at Hard Rock Stadium, where the Dolphins also play home games. But that's where the Miami Hurricanes have been playing their home games the last several years. So first time ever that a home team gets a home game for a national championship. So that'll be super interesting. I think Indiana wins. I don't think it's close. Miami makes stupid mistakes, stupid coaching decisions. Like, they should have blown out. Who'd they play? Georgia? No. Man, who did Miami even play in the last game? Ole Miss, right? Yeah, Ole Miss. That game should have been put away early. There were some stupid mistakes they made. Just some bad passes, drop balls. But that game shouldn't have been close either. And for that, because I don't think Indiana does not make the mistakes that Miami makes, I think Indiana wins by 17 points. At least 17 points. Indiana wins the national championship. It's not going to be a close game. It's going to be a blowout. So there's that. What else do we have? Let's talk golf. PGA is getting underway this month, this week maybe even, tomorrow? Sony Open, something like that's coming up. But the other news, big news with PGA golf is Brooks Koepka leaving LIV to come back to PGA Tour, which, I mean, I get it. I get if your contract's up, but like, I think Wyndham Clark, I'm going to paraphrase it, but Wyndham Clark basically said, well, if I would have known I could have gone to LIV and made $100 million and come back to the PGA Tour, why wouldn't I have done that? And it was along those lines, which he's right. Like, how is that okay? Like, if these guys want to come back to the PGA Tour, they should make them go through Q school. Make them earn it again, is what I think. But then on the other side of it, it's good for golf. It's good for fans to have these guys back. So I get that too. The quicker Brooks Koepka is back in regular tournaments, not just majors, that's good for golf too. So I get that side of it. And I don't know. I don't know where I'm at on that. But man, I don't blame him though either. Like, if I could go to LIV for 3 years or however long your contract is, make all that money, come back to the PGA Tour, why not? Because obviously the PGA Tour is way more prestigious than LIV. The only reason LIV has those golfers is because of the money, obviously. And the product is the product. Like, they haven't added anybody spectacular in the last, really since the last year, I guess, maybe. Like, who have they added that you're like, wow, this is going to make Live so much better? So the only reason Live is even talked about or existing is because of the money, because they were able to lure those guys away from the PGA Tour. And that's it. That was the only reason, was because of the money. So I hope Bryson comes back. I hope Jon Rahm comes back. You know, Sergio Garcia, which I know he's like getting older. Phil Mickelson, older guy. But they were staples on the PGA Tour for so long. And now they're on Live. And so it's nice to have Koepka back. You know, I don't know all the details of what he had to pay. I know he had to donate some money, and I think there might have been a fine, but I hope those guys come back to the PGA Tour, because Live was a cool idea, but I don't see the longevity in Live. And is it longevity or longevity? Because there's only one G in that word. I say it's longevity or longevity. Anyways, but I hope Bryson comes back. I like Bryson DeChambeau. And I know Live is on and you can find it on TV, but I don't choose to watch it. I've watched a little bit, but I'm not going to cruise over and watch Live golf. I've watched more TGL than I've watched Live, if that says anything. And all TGL is PGA guys hitting into a screen. It's not even a real golf course. But you've also got big names there doing that. And so which also Brooks Koepka now is, what's the word? He's able to compete on TGL, I guess, if they select him. However you say that. And that's something else too. I like TGL, as weird as it is, but I like that it's on a Tuesday night when nothing else is on. So maybe that's why with TGL having it on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday when you got nothing else going on. So, but I am glad golf is back. It's going to be a fun PGA season. You've got all your, the normal guys who are up there, and they're going to be competing and fighting for those victories with Rory and Scotty and all those names. So, but it is weird though. And I get it. I get what Wyndham Clark was saying by his quote about, if I could do that, well, why wouldn't we do that and come back? Because I think they're going to receive Brooks Koepka. I can't say his name. They will receive him with open arms. It's almost like the prodigal son in the Bible, like, welcome back. You went astray for a few years, but come on back. We're going to welcome you back for many reasons. They need him. I think the PGA Tour, in a way, needs Brooks Koepka. He's won some majors. He's one of the top guys. And I think it's good for both. So I'll stop rambling on about Live and PGA. What else do we have, man? How many job openings are there in the NFL? Good grief. Pittsburgh Steelers, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Browns, the Raiders. I'm sure I'm leaving out some other teams, but I think, Harbaugh getting fired from the Ravens was pretty wild. I don't know. That seemed weird, but maybe it was just time to move on. He'd been there so long. And now it sounds like the New York Giants are finalizing a deal to make him their next head coach, which, is that a better job than Baltimore? I don't know. Can Harbaugh make the Giants relevant again and good again? I don't know. But I don't know where else. The Browns is a dumpster fire. The Dolphins, not great. So I don't know. Was that the Steelers is obviously, Steelers has to be the best job out there, right? As far as just tradition and history like that. It's going to be an interesting hire, whoever the Steelers hire as their head coach, because I think that's a great job. The Giants job, sure. Jackson Dart, Scattaboo, he'll be back healthy next year. So I don't know. I don't know how their defense holds up, but Harbaugh's a good coach, and he'll have some guidance on who they get in there personnel-wise and coaching-wise. Does he bring Todd Monken over? Which I think he's applied somewhere for OC jobs, but that will be interesting. Giants and Steelers, I think, are the two best jobs out there. You've got the Ravens, Dolphins. So it'll be interesting to see who gets shuffled around and fills those spots. Oh, the Falcons. Forgot about the Falcons. So interesting season in the NFL with, we got playoffs coming up, and obviously we had wild card, but real playoffs start this week. So I'm looking forward to that Denver Buffalo game. Hoping my Broncos can win that game. My son is a huge Bills fan, loves Josh Allen. So I like Josh Allen too. I want him to get a Super Bowl if the Broncos can't. So we'll see what happens there, but some good games. The Rams have to go to the Bears. It's going to be really cold for that game, like 10 degrees, 15 degrees at kickoff. I think the Bears win that, so that will be interesting. Niners, Seahawks. A lot of people pick the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl, which is also hilarious that there's this, I don't know how they figured it out, but in the last 3 times that a new pope at the Vatican has been put in as pope, the Seahawks have won the Super Bowl. If history repeats itself again, Seahawks should win the Super Bowl because there's a new pope this year. That's a wild stat to think about. So we'll see what happens there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to talk about. I just saw, I have ESPN up, but there's dozens charged with college hoops point shaving. I actually don't know what schools are involved in that, and dozens of players? That's insane. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there with, I think, college basketball. So point shaving, yikes. Anything else? I don't know if there's anything else sports-wise. I think that's all I got. I said I was going to talk for a really long time. I don't know how long it's been. It's been like 40 minutes. Thanks for listening to me ramble, talk about just my thoughts on this and getting things done and moving forward in 2026. But here we are, release rotation. I hope some fun stuff comes out of this and keeps progressing and getting better and better. And same with my podcast playbook. If you are interested in starting a podcast, check it out. It's on YouTube, the podcast playbook. Got some videos up there for newbies. So there you have it. It is Thursday, right? Yeah, Thursday. Have a good night. See ya.